Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Hi, it's Kerry Lutz. I recently decided to move my retirement account into physical precious metals to hedge against the coming times. If you want to move an existing retirement account into physical precious metals that you can hold in your hand, tax-free, there's no company that can do it more quickly and efficiently than Regal Assets. It took them just 24 hours to open my new IRA account, and all I had to do was fill out one simple form. The best part is that Regal Assets does all the work for you. They cover the setup and administrative costs for 2013. If you're interested in making the same move I did, call 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620. That's 855-678-6620, or visit them at regalassets.com. You'll be glad you did, and tell them Kerry sent you. You are listening to the financialsurvivalnetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1230 WBZT. Well, what a shock. More Fed statistics due to come out, more economic statistics. Of course, we'll have the jobs report, GDP, all that great stuff. And what do you think is going to happen? Well, gold will get slammed, which is exactly what's happening today. And who better to talk about it than Peter Grandich? Peter, welcome back.
Thank you for having me, as always.
So gold's down around $18.50, and aren't you surprised?
Well, it's funny you say that because I had some emails from a couple, 2-3 friends around the world, actually, who came into this morning thinking, because we saw, again, as we normally do, good physical buy-in over in Asia, that it would carry into New York. And I said at 5 o'clock this morning to them, no way. We're going into a Fed an announcement, and we're also going to have the payroll number. And you can almost go to the bank, so to speak, that go under pressure. And literally, as the COMEX, or as I like to call it, the CRIMEX, opened up at 8:20, down we went. And it's just, it's very sad to see that everybody sees all the manipulation. Now they're looking at, the aluminum market being manipulated, and yet there's still some idiots that come on the media and they'll let them say it, that, oh, there's no manipulation in gold. That's all just, tinfoil hat stuff and conspiracy stuff that doesn't exist. And then you have J.P. Morgan pays $7 billion, I said billion, in fines in the last 2 years. And they laugh. Why? Because they're making $70 billion doing what they do best. It's getting absurd. It's frustrating. It's terrible to see a market, and because so few participate in it, we don't get the avalanche of aggravation that should be seen. But what those people don't understand is, because of what's happening here and because of what they're trying to do, impacts everybody in a much bigger way. But it's just very sad, but it's very predictable now.
Yeah, and it's just putting off the final result, the demise of fiat currencies around the globe, right?
Yeah, and realistically, when you think about it, and like I said a couple of weeks ago in a report that I wrote, I said, I took back and I looked at this. I said, you know what? It's not a coincidence that the real heavy selling began on the news of Germany first wanting to see its metal, not being able to see its gold, then willing to accept just 20% back that they wanted to ship, and was going to take 7 years to do it. And then, just the terrible, unusual selling that we saw at the worst possible times. No one in their right mind sells like that. We saw tremendous demand for physical gold. We've seen the vaults gold declining, and all this is happening, and there's a yawn because why? Because 98 to 99% of investors and the people who work in financial industry don't make their living from what happens in the gold market. And those of us who do, and those of us who see what is happening, the absurdity of the manipulation and the things that are happening, and know sooner or later what's going to happen, yet it's very frustrating to live through this. And then even when we get to the point when we can tell them, well, I told you so, no one's going to care because their lives are going to be ruined, and it's going to be so widespread bad that it doesn't matter that you were able to foresee it, and you're not going to be able to get mad at the people who should have seen it, didn't say anything, because they made all sorts of money, and that's why J.P. Morgan and the like are willing to pay billions in fines to make tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars in other matters.
Yeah, so in the meantime, we could take solace that the appellate court struck down the Bloomberg soft drink ban, and we just have to wait for our day of reckoning when things are set straight and take our own personal satisfaction that somehow the world will be righted, the monetary system, the destruction, the decimation that's going to take place. Really, very few people can really get their arms around it. Nobody wants to really come to terms with it now until they absolutely have to, right? I mean, nobody can fathom this, Peter, right?
Well,
very few.
It's not only no one, a lot of people don't want to. They continue to hope against hope. They don't want to face the reality. They're caught on the treadmill of trying to keep their head above water. We just continue to see economic news that's just very, very bad. They can stroke and do all the things they want with GDP numbers and all, but the bottom line is this. More people are out of work. More people, we have the lowest amount of Americans working. We have so many of them just marginally staying ahead. Very few people have any type of savings. The quality of jobs is shrinking dramatically. We're now counting part-time jobs, or, no offense, but low-level service working jobs as employment. All of this is transpiring at a time when the country's moving more and more to socialism. Everything that once made this country great is being torn apart or thrown away. And, there's not a voice anymore, and those who tried to make a voice get so pounded by the political correctness that they've, in a sense, have given up themselves. And that's the shame of it. And it doesn't bother me as much at my age in the late 50s, but my children and anybody has children and grandchildren, I just can't imagine the world, the environment they're going to have to live in this country over the next 20 or 50 years. It can only be far worse than anything we've seen up till now.
Yeah, it's really sad. You and I are a couple years apart, and, we've lived the best that life in this country has had to offer. We've had the best food, lived in the best houses, driven the best cars, and on the one hand, you and I say, well, hey, screw it, so we got however many years we have left, and we've got our savings socked away, so why do you care? What difference does it make to you? But then on the other hand, you've got your kids and your grandchildren and your future grandchildren who are going to have to live through this mess that you and I created, and that not necessarily that you and I personally created, that our generation created. And it kind of brings tears to your eyes, doesn't it?
Well, it makes it very, very sad. And I live in a 55 and over community, but the bulk of the people are 65, 70 and over. I guess I'm there to balance the age level.
Exactly.
But the bottom line is, in recent weeks, we've had some serious talks among friends and all, because they kind of started to sense it and see it. The 55 and over group is an interesting sector, demographic in our country, and it probably is going to play a key role in what actually happens and to what degree. First of all, 80% of the wealth in America is owned by people 55 and over. The single largest voting group in America. They have seen in the last 10 years almost their lifestyle decimated in this sense. Many of them, when they retired or planned retirement, planned it on a rate of return much higher than they can earn now without risk. They expected 6 or 8 or 9%, and now the bank pays 1 or 2. So the lowering of interest rates, which was supposed to help a lot of people, really hurt that group. The second thing that they got hammered over the years is home prices in the stock market have become stale. We recovered back to where we were in 2007 a little bit more, but when you account for purchasing power and all, they've lost it. And then the last bastion, really what a lot of these people counted on, and I didn't realize the degree until I lived among so many, and that was really a platinum-style medical coverage that they would have in their latter years through Medicare. And that, of course, has to change dramatically and will. no matter what happens with Obamacare. So here we have this group who still have the single largest voting bloc, who still have much of what's wealth left in the country, and they've been hit on all sides. And they look at all of this, and they become very dejected. And they, too, also say, well, you know what, even if it impacts us, but what are my children and grandchildren going to do? And I hear more concerns about that than anything about them personally.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about it, too. My kids are doing pretty well. They have good jobs, but I can't see them really building wealth throughout their lives unless they really advance way, way higher in their careers than they probably have reasonable expectation of doing. And, I guess they can get married, two can live cheaper than one, but then they're going to want to have kids. And, I just, the optimism that I greeted life with, that you greeted life with, that enabled us to really go on, become successful, plow on, that's missing from this generation, Peter. And it's really sad that the generations that came before us, your parents, my parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, that enabled them to get on a boat from someplace in Europe and really just put everything on the line and come to this country, that doesn't exist anymore.
I think another thing, and it was ironic, I had a childhood friend stay over my house in the last couple of days, and we were separated for a lot of years, and we got back together, and we were talking about the things that we did as children. And one of the things we did as children, we were very innovative. We went out and played, and we made up games, and we thought of things and used things that were typically just out there. And we were looking at children today who, when we were talking about when the power failure went, our kids didn't know what to do because they're so used to playing everything that's involved on a computer or a smartphone. They had no innovations of just getting together. And then the other thing was the socializing. Their socializing is through email and texts, and they're losing, how to learn to be around people and groups, and leaders get developed. And it's just a whole cycle of viciousness that I think is in place that has deteriorated us. But I also don't want to lose sight, and I don't want to be as much gloom and doom that this, unfortunately, as bad as it sounds, plays into the hands of what I think is eventually going to happen with gold. I think all what has taken place is that we've seen massive buying of gold in Asia. I'm convinced now that it won't be too far along, led by the Chinese, that we're going to see a serious move towards a new world reserve currency, and it will have a gold backing. And that's why I think why this just continues to be huge quantities of physical bullion purchase. What went bad in this plan for these folks, and that's why they continue to attack it like they did today, was when they really hit gold and the paper price came down. You would think in anything when there's a big sell-off, it's all one-sided. You remember when we had our first oil shortages? If you had a big car, well, try selling it. No one was buying a big car. When the home market caved, try selling your home. There were no buyers. Here we saw for 2 months straight just the paper market getting hit and gold falling hundreds of dollars in prices, and all people were doing outside of North America were trying to buy physical gold, not sell it and dump it and get out of it. And that's where this maneuver and for where it obviously led is in the paper market and the COMEX has failed them. And they're continuing with their desperation. It's become so apparent that we could actually talk about it before it happens. But the bottom line is they're losing the war. They may seem to have won the short-term battle, but they're actually losing the war here, and their desperation is becoming more acute. And I also think there was another important news Kerry, while we're talking, and I think it was very critical, and that was J.P. Morgan's announcement late Friday, which kind of popped gold, that they want to leave the commodities market. Now, I got to tell you something. If you go look at J.P. Morgan's annual report, you'll see over the last few years they made a ton of money in that market, including the metals. And now suddenly, after being fined and found guilty in the oil market and others, they want to pull out. That's a very strange maneuver. From a business standpoint, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like having a restaurant and it's the biggest and people are online, and all of a sudden you just say, listen, we decided to close. We don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
It's very peculiar. It's just another piece of the puzzle that suggests that as frustrating as it is now, something just over the horizon is going to change dramatically, and we're going to see gold return to a much higher price. But it's very frustrating knowing and sensing that and not seeing it in the paper market, by the price being, down again today, and emails coming in and asking why this is that and this, and so forth. So I just think we have to bear it and just appreciate that it's really only a matter of time, and the time is ticking pretty fast before all these chickens come home to roost.
Yeah, I think you're right. Supposedly they're going to stay in the gold and silver markets. I think they made that statement just to stop those markets from going parabolic. Could you imagine if they actually said, hey, we're fleeing all commodities, including gold and silver, so adios? Do you know what would have happened to gold and silver had they made that announcement? So by necessity, they had to say, we're staying there. But you can stay there without staying there. Let's face it. They've got this vault, and they've got like next to no metal left in it. So you can have a token presence, and you can vacate the metal markets without really vacating them. And I think that's what they're going to do. And I think that's what those in the know they're going to do. And we'll see that happen real soon. I want to welcome our new sponsor, Audible. I've been listening to audiobooks from them for over 5 years now. I am a huge Audible fan. In fact, I've bought multiple Platinum memberships. Platinum membership, you buy 25 audiobooks at a time. I just got done listening to the first 3 or 4 books of the Jack Reacher series, the one you probably saw, or maybe you didn't, in the theater, Tom Cruise movie. I mean, just a wonderful book, wonderful series, expertly narrated. And so many times I'm in the car, I get sick of listening to music or news or the radio. I just put my iPod on, plays the book, and makes that trip go by so quickly. To me, this is one of the great things of the information revolution of the internet, is that you can get over 100,000 books on your iPad or iPod or iPhone instantly. Another thing that they have is courses on Audible, the Modern Scholar series. And I've listened to lectures about World War I, Shakespeare, nanotechnology, detective novels. It's so enlightening. To me, Audible is a must-have killer app for the iPhone, the iPad, for my computer, wherever I am. I'm always downloading these books. Like I say, they're a sponsor, so check them out. They've got a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial membership. Just sign up at www.audiblepodcast.com/Lutz, Lutz. Again, audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. Sign up today. Like I say, this to me is a dream sponsor. These are exactly the types of things that I like to pass on to you because I'm such a fanatical, over-the-top Audible user. 5-6 years I've been listening, hundreds of books. I used to think I was a well-read person, and it's a little strange when somebody asks you, did you read that book? And you have to say, somebody actually read it to me, but they actually did a better job than I could have, so I don't mind it. But my friend Sean Perger up in Vancouver, he listens to almost as many as I do, and he can't get enough. I know you're going to love this company, love their service. I do. So check them out. audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. Right?
Yeah, again, I think the close on all of this, I just think as frustrating as it is, and don't be surprised for the rest of the week, gold stays under pressure through the payroll number and everything. But I just think now that the change in attitude in the gold market is going to be buy weakness versus sell rallies. I think that's what we're seeing, and I think that will pick up, particularly very important for people to know now, and this gets lost in the transaction. Still the single biggest amount of gold is sold through jewelry fabrication. It's still the single largest component, and jewelry fabricators come back in late August and do 2/3 of their business between August and November, obviously for the Christmas season and some of the overseas holidays that hit up in January, February. So we're going to enter a seasonally favorable period for gold very soon. And I think that will probably be timing when we do break through this 1350, 1400 area and gold gets rolling again. So a couple more weeks of aggravation. Perhaps this is the last payroll and Fed news that we're going to see gold pressured on. But come September and all, I think we should be in much better shape.
Hey, and one other point is that Americans have become net jewelry buyers for the first time, I think, since 08 or 09. And that's another factor weighing in gold's favor. And lower prices have made Americans net gold buyers. So interesting times ahead. Peter, we find you at Grandich.com. Sign up for Peter's free newsletter and alerts. You really don't want to miss it. It's certainly worth the price. And, you know, Peter's been watching these markets longer than just about anybody, and his sage advice and wisdom, don't want to miss it. Hey, one more thing, gold stocks, mining stocks, they've written off just about everything except the coffee maker in most of these companies. They've got nothing left to write off, which means any increase in prices and profits goes virtually right to the bottom line here, right?
Yeah, we've seen the lows, in my opinion. I just don't think, particularly as you go down the food chain to the juniors, there could be a very dramatic rally unless gold prices rise dramatically, because there's still a desire of people to use strength to relieve themselves of the agony that they've gone through. At least that's the mode that I get from employers. So we may not see the real rally until next year of substantial, but the lows have been made. And like you said, you made a very good point. They've taken so much write-downs that it's pretty well priced in. And if we do get a $300 or $500 pop in gold in the next 12 months, those shares you'll finally get the leverage you always hope that you get in the majors. I do think the juniors have a more difficult time because of the situation of funding, and they're always burning matches and always looking for money. But the higher you go up to the producers, the better off you're likely to see the leverage come back if the gold price does increase.
Yep. And like we said, for obvious reasons, probably going to go up. So, Peter, always a pleasure. We'll check in with you soon. Hey, enjoy the rest of the summer, and you be well.
Thank you, Kerry.
All right. Take care. Bye.
All right.
The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.